So that was probably one of the hardest thing without breaking it. And flat windows, just pieces of stone. When I talk about keeping pieces of plastic, it's a bit dirty. From pie tubs, ice cream, supermarket, anything. That's what this is here. I may have done a little bit of bending to it, but basically it was a piece of plastic that I was hunting for, and I'd actually buy a product for a couple of dollars just to get the plastic casing that it was in, just to get something close to the shape, and then you can bend it a little bit. So that's how you do windows basically. If you into vac forming, that's great, but that's really on bigger models. And you got to know what you're doing. I used to work a vacuum form machine, massive one, just to make swords and shields, believe it or not. And yeah, it's great fun. So, but the home ones, you might as well just get clever and search for bits of plastic that are similar to what you want. This little bar down here, that's nothing more than a piece of styrene tubing just bent and glued on, very delicate. Some of the bits on the front are just a piece of, I think that's actually metal, sheet, very thin sheet metal. Then a piece from a kit, another kit that looks similar. The decals I grabbed from, I think, some World War II plane that I cut the letters out and sort of put them on individually. You got recesses here for headlights. They're little pieces of glass. Obviously, they don't light up. But I'm not sort of totally into doing that. It takes a lot of work. And do you battery operate it, or do you hook it up so that you can turn it on and just look at it every night? To the mains power. I got enough of that in my room as it is, with all my control panels and mini arcade machines and stuff. But it would look good lit up. So and here we've got just staples from a stapler. These bits had some detail in them, and I just put square styrene. Often you'll get on your sprues, you'll get little round bits. You just cut the tips off those and put them on. Hard to see really, but just to create little reflector lights or indicators or whatever they might be. Down here, little wheel hubs or something from a model kit. You really, the more model kits you make, we have leftover bits and pieces, and you do, believe it or not, the more you're able to go, right, I'm not stuck. I can add this detail or add that. Like that's just, 3 pieces of styrene, bit of balsa wood under there, side, top, and a back. And the handrails, these are metal. You can buy that from the model shop as well, and it's just bent with a minor pair of pliers, cut and bent and then just stuck into the balsa wood. So this, what I'm trying to say, this entire finish is balsa wood, apart from this add-on piece of half rocket. This is all balsa wood finish. There is no plastic art on there other than this bit here and this plastic shape and the odd bits and pieces. So, its finish is okay for something like this, but this is where I'm talking about the primers and undercoats. When all the stuff's added on after at the end, but you draw it on where you think it's going to be, even when you coat it with white primer or undercoat or whatever, just to create a solid shell, because you need to track as you go that that your model's got these parts and they're going to fit and look the right size. Hence the fact that I got it wrong and cut it down the middle and literally spread the 2 parts apart while it was completely finished, added balsa wood in, sanded it and trimmed it. There's not a lot of evidence that I did that, maybe just near the window somewhere. It was a massive job, but it was just too narrow, and it was driving me nuts. I think it was 6 months before I decided I was going to do it, and the roof started to collapse. All sorts of things happened, and those are the sort of things Even a model maker that's been doing it for a lot of years will do. Believe it or not, we just don't own up to it. So yeah, that's a fun subject. Probably not one I'm suggesting anyone tackles, but it's just I'm showing you this one because all this ergonomic detail in here is literally balsa wood. I mean, I can't even dent that. It's like almost like fiberglass, but it literally is layer after layer of undercoats and primers and white. I don't use grey. White is great because you can really see all the highlights and everything. There is a theory if you use white undercoat, then the paint colours that you're using on top will come out more realistic. If you use grey primers, then the paints you put on as the final coat come out duller. So for white paint, you use light colours. For dark colours like red and is considered a dark colour, greys or greens, dark greens, stuff like that, you can use grey primer. It doesn't really matter. So I use white because white sort of covers everything, and I was able to just colour match these colours basically with spray cans, believe it or not. And then you can see a bit of weathering, and you can also see a little bit of yellowing and various other things going on that sort of create the look of, well, I'm not sure what colour that is. Is that blue? Is that turquoise? Now, it's probably not showing up on the camera, but it's definitely a thing. As you can see, that's probably more blue than this is. And that is not aging naturally. That's something I did deliberately so that it sort of looked like a real vehicle of this type. Even in the future, it would have some sort of wear and tear on it, as the Andersons do, models do. And there's panel lines in there, just drawn on with marker pens, a few smudges. You see vertical panel lines there in that middle, with a little bit of smudge going backwards, as if as it's driven through the rain, dirt's got stuck in the panel line, which is supposed to represent a groove, but it's just drawn on, and the dirt's got stuck in there and sort of washed back, which is the theory of that type of thing. You can do it with an airbrush, or you can do it with your finger, or just a paintbrush with nothing on it, and just blur it with a marker pen. Being careful, not to always use permanent markers that go dry really fast. So a lot of talking, but this model just gives you an idea of it's just balsa wood. It's custom made. I've got notes on there like an arrow and which way it goes and stuff. Underneath, it's rough as guts. On the top, it's quite smooth. When you go inside, I did have, before I cut it in half, I did have the driver and the steering wheel, but now he's just got his hand in midair, which you don't really notice, and one day I'll get back to that. But you can see the walls of the inside. They're thin, like way at the bottom of the windows. They're thin, and then they widen as it goes down to allow me to create that groove. That groove that goes in there, and shaping that was really hard, because what I had to do is the red lines that you see are basically had to be drawn on the balsa wood as I was sanding it, to indicate where I stop and start the curve, like a big curve there, sort of indent, and then another curve there. So you're constantly drawing with a ruler, holding up a ruler to it, or just by hand if you're good enough. You're drawing these lines around it in the balsa wood stage to show you where you've got to sand it. And sometimes you'll sand those lines, those black lines that you're drawing on the balsa wood, off and go, oh, where was that? And redo it again. And that's what it's all about. And then when you get to the primer stage, you do the same thing again. You put those lines back in, and the reason you do that is because you need these red lines on here. Now, whether you're doing a plane or whatever you're doing, on a model kit you buy, it'll tell you in instructions where they go, but you've got to decide where they go from all the photos and things that you've downloaded. So you've got to get that indent all the way around accurate enough to put these lines on. I was talking to you about red graphic paper the other day. You know, that's about just over 1 millimeter thick red lines going around there. Now that's a graphic paper that basically lay on a flat cutting surface, put a metal ruler there, and then use your knife and you hold the ruler down on the graphic paper, and then you just cut real thin strips and try and get as many done as you can, and then you just put them on by hand and wrap them around. But before I did that, well, actually after I did that, I clear coated it with a satin, as I showed in my previous video when I was playing around with paint cans and talking a lot of garbage. Because what that does is stops these stickers from coming on. It's literally putting a coat of seal over the top of them. Not that they will peel off, but when you get to graphics that are that thin, they aren't decals, they're graphic stickers. You won't find stripes like this in a model shop. You'll just find sheets of graphic sticker, and so you've got to create that yourself and cut it yourself. And the chances of it completely staying on, the best thing you can do is overlap it. You know, when you've come around the corner, go over the top a little bit. It doesn't. It's just there, and it doesn't really show. But yeah, to get those thin lines to stay on, I clear coated at the end after it was all painted very carefully, and it was before I put the windows in. I clear coated the model to give it a little bit of sheen. Yeah, it's really hard to see. I don't want to overlight it. I like to keep things so that I can cast shadows on the model so you can see the detail. If I put a spotlight on this, everything gets washed out. So even though the video is a little dark, you get to see the shadows and the shapes and what have you. And the base is nothing more than 4 staples. 1, 2, 3, 4. Obviously, again, double-sided tape because that had to be stuck down in transportation. But just to keep that pressure off those staples, there's a piece of balsa wood going through the middle that it rests on. So it's sort of a balancing act. There's no... On the original studio model, there are wheels. It's got 4 wheels, but it's supposed to be a hover vehicle. And you can actually see those wheels as it goes past in the show. That's part of the fun of Anderson shows, seeing the mistakes. They were made really fast. Every episode was rushed, but also care was taken to make the models. But they had to, they didn't have technology to do anything other than put things like this on wheels. But I love hover buses in general. I've done the other one from Joe 90, which is only in a short scene that was remodified for a military vehicle, or repeatedly going past the screen as a military vehicle. But that's also similar colours. I'll show you that in another video. And that's one that Joe 90 and the professor or whatever were going to see the MiG, and Joe was going to hop in to steal that, and they were on a tour. So I made that bus because it was a very similar type of thing to this, possibly more complicated actually. So rather than sort of say, well, this is a model that you should make, gives you an idea of how hard a model like this could be to make, but also how it can be done completely almost out of balsa wood with just bits stuck to it. This isn't one of my models that has lots of plastic card all over it to get its shape, because and that's where some of the best models come from, is the ergonomic shape of the Anderson models, the future that we never got. I mean, did you ever ride in a bus like this? No. So there you go. That's the hover bus from Thunderbirds. It's more of an overview, sort of offering tips and advice how to scratch build takes a long time, and it could be formatted in an order, and professionally, but that's not me. I didn't have the time to sit down for hours and plan each show. So I just pick up an item and say, well, this is at this stage and that is at that stage, and then you start to, if you do watch all these videos, you start to put it all together in your head about, oh, this is how it works, this is how to approach it. So anyway, hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.